right. I am joined by Touré Reed and Jason Myles, who I have been talking to for about an hour. So I figured we should start recording. Got into a whole thing about how much everybody loves Kurt Hammond and is the greatest guitarist of all time, and and all of this stuff. Although Dave Mustaine is the most courageous one because of his ability to survive in the music industry as a Trump supporter. So
and an Obama birther.
Probably,
yeah,
absolutely. I'm actually not familiar with this.
Yeah, sad. It broke my heart. Ben, you don't understand. That was like me finding out Santa Claus was a racist.
Well, and it's harder to buy used CDs now because who even has a CD player? Like there was a time where you could buy the music of artists you hated, but not feel guilty about it. Like you hated their politics but loved their art, but you wouldn't feel guilty about it because you could just buy it used so they wouldn't get the money. This is why I own R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet. I wouldn't give him the money, but that song was that opera, whatever, R&B opera, whatever, it was so ridiculous that I had to own it. And I was able to buy a used CD. You can't buy a used digital download, right? I mean, so there's no escape hatch anymore. You just watch it on YouTube for free, I guess.
I'd still enjoy the greatest Megadeth song from one of the best thrash albums of all time, which is Peace Sells But Who's Buying, Good Morning Black Friday. One of the most tasteful solos you will hear by Chris Poland, and a very, very intricate rhythm part by Dave Mustaine that just kind of almost has no structure. But it works together so beautifully. So I will always love him for that and despise him for his Obama album.
Fair enough.
That's good. Yeah, I endorse that for what it's worth.
Speaking of Obama.
Yeah, well, Obama said that there are people in parts of the country who are clinging to their guns and their religion and their cannibalism. So let's talk about the Hills Have Eyes.
Talk about Wes Craven.
Well, not Wes Craven.
I watched High Tension first.
Yeah,
because I watched it in the order that I remember watching it back in the day, and I remember I bought High Tension. I don't know if you guys had Suncoast where you're from.
Oh yeah,
remember I don't recall that, but I've seen.
Yeah, I remember actually thinking it was weird that like every mall that I was ever at would always have like the same. I remember it was always like the Suncoast was like always by the Orange Julius or something. There was like this little wave. They were all clustered,
So no one saw you buy weird anime porn. But I bought High Tension just because it was in the horror section, and I put it in, and I was like, and it's much like this movie. It moves the same director, right? And it moves the same way, and it was a really hard watch. Like you get done watching it, and you feel uneasy, and then I watched Hills Have Eyes at midnight my time. I was like, let me rewatch it. I remember the movie very well, but let me rewatch it anyway. And I had the worst nightmare waking up. And much like it did when I first saw it on when I rented it when it came out, maybe like 2007, totally stays with you. It's an extremely unsettling movie. It mixes gore and suspense so well. But one of the few remakes, because to me it starts off the era of the remake, right? If Marvel can relaunch their franchise with an unknown character that never had his own book and Blade, then the remake genre is does something similar by starting off with a movie not too many people saw from the 70s, The Hills Have Eyes. And damn, I mean, even from setting it in Morocco, those opening shots.
Well, I thought it was a better movie than High Tension. I may have seen High Tension first, but I think my takeaway from High Tension was like you. I thought it was disturbing, but there was almost a what the hell was that? There was an intensity to it. it didn't seem to have a lot of point. By contrast, The Hills Have Eyes has a similar intensity, and interestingly enough, infuses in a kind of Iraq War has gone bad kind of way, a kind of social commentary that you could only get from a Frenchman, or at least a non-American, right? I mean, that's bound up into this horror film that centers on people who've been mutated by the legacy of the American U.S. weapons program.
Yeah. So so I'd never seen this before. Night Before Last, I saw the original, the Wes Craven one. I don't know, several years ago. I was definitely still living in New Jersey. I don't remember exactly, but I thought it was good. I mean, I don't think it was his best movie or anything, but I thought it was good. And I will admit I don't remember it very well. I mean, I remember moments from the original movie, and yeah, this really surprised me, and this seemed like a much better movie than the original, which is weird, right? Because it's a much later. I mean, I love Wes Craven. I'm a big big fan of the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I have. I won't court cancellation by by talking about the Snake and the Rainbow, but they have but the man made a lot of good movies. The Nightmare on Elm Street, when it was remade, was a abomination in the sight of God. That was just like the like that 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street is one of the worst things that's ever been perpetrated. But this was great, and this was a much more intense movie, which you can tell like right away, right? Like the opening minutes, right? There's some kind of like scientific survey team or something out in the desert, and then you see them within like 2 minutes. You see them being like harpooned, and I think, oh my God, what am I watching right now?
Yeah. That's how I felt, because I forgot the original. I think I saw the original on like USA.
Up All Night was around this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the original didn't really, I think, almost seemed campy.
Yeah.
And when you watch this remake, it's like, this is no camp.
Mm.
This is hitting you over the head in the first few minutes, and you don't see what the people look like for actually quite some time in the film, which I thought was even more unsettling about the whole thing. Right? Because we watch horror movies and we watch the first 5 minutes, we're like, that guy's gonna die.
Yeah.
And
it's gotten harder though since we moved away from the cliche of killing the black guy first.
Where was the black guy?
Well, no, I'm saying that you used to be able to
just identify
just because the black dude was there, he's out, right?
It's funny. Someone actually dispelled that myth that the black guy dies first
in the
in horror noir. Yeah, he doesn't. Even in like was it Friday the 13th when dude is singing in the toilet, ooh baby, because I always sing to my girlfriend when I'm taking a shit.
Okay.
Sarcasm, yes.
But we have to admit, and I know you guys all noticed this, the actor that plays the father, because the story is about a father, a husband and wife that are on their anniversary. The husband is a conservative cop, he just retired, and they're going on this cross-country trip, and the husband is played by I think his name is Ted Levine, Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. And every time he talks, all I hear is, "Oh, I'd fuck me."
I think everybody hears that, at least if they've seen Silence of the Lambs.
You mean that big old fat girl? This kind of
triggered a new acting renaissance for him too, right? Because didn't Monk come out around this time or not long after?
He did a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And he was always a cop and everything else that he played, which I thought was funny because everyone knows him from tucking his junk and you know, showing his ball throw.
I would have gone with making a suit of Rubenesque women or out of Rubenesque women, but that too, I think we know.
That doesn't stick in your head as much as lotion in the basket.
That sticks in your head.
Yeah.
And his affinity for that poodle. Right? He had a little poodle, which seemed like such a juxtaposition.
Precious.
When he told that girl to put we watched that scene like 100 times in a row. And back in the VA, we were like, oh, ashy bitches. So watching this movie, I was like, I wonder if people fucked with him about that on set, because I definitely would have. Like, Ted, tuck your shit. All the actors fucking with him every time he turns around.
Yeah.
But that's what I thought when I watched it until the first kill, and then I was
yeah, the first kill comes very quickly and is rough, and then you do this. You know, it's almost like a TV show opening credit sequence that that happens after that, where you get all of this imagery, which they're talking about the atomic tests and the mutations, and so you see, like, within the opening credits, you see all of these like grotesquely mutilated babies, which is also like surprising, right? That like when you see that, and then you come back and you're with this family on their cross country road trip. Multiple generations. There's the Buffalo Bill is Big Bob, right? That's the character or something like that. Who's this conservative patriarch of the family, very into guns, and
not a fan of his son-in-law.
Not a fan of his son-in-law.
Wonderful juxtaposition between them. They're like the Archie and Meathead of this road trip.
Yeah, so the son-in-law is this. So this movie came out in 2006, and I mean, in some ways, it might be just an interesting little snapshot of, like, the culture war of 2006. That the son-in-law is this guy. I think they said he's like a cell phone salesman or something.
Yeah, he said, I'm in telecommunications.
Yeah. Okay,
like, what does that mean? He said, I sell cell phones. It's like, oh, you work at the Sprint store? You're the Metro PCS guy? Hey, shut up.
But like everything about that guy, the way he looks and the way he acts and everything, he's like the 2006 idea of a dweeby liberal.
No, true. Like he'd be doing the Mac commercial.
Yeah, totally.
So side note, as we do on these shows, have you seen, did I show you the video, Touré, of the dude that walked into the Metro store to try to rob it with a gun?
Oh, with the fight? Yeah. You showed me that. That was crazy.
Did I show you that, Ben?
Crazy.
This, speaking of guys that sell cell phones and punks.
Was that real?
Yeah.
Okay.
This kid goes into with the cell phone store. And you know how like sometimes you got people in the store till you close and you lock the front door. And so the guy's locking the door and he's doing the count out, and the kid walks up. He's like, "This ain't a game, nigga. Break yourself!" Ah! And he's like, he's small, much smaller than the guy.
Wiry.
And the guy's kind of calm about it, and the kid's being very aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally, the dude just says, "Fuck this!" Grabs a kid, snatches a gun out of his hand. The kid tries to run. He can't get out because the door is locked. So the dude walks over. And the kids trying to beat him up, not working out real well for him at all. So finally the kid gets up and he starts crying. And he's like, "Man, please, I can't. I just got out. Please don't go, please." And
that was the best part. Because the Beretta theme song went through my mind at that time. What was the first line? Don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
He fucked him. That dude fucked that kid up and he started crying, Ben. So when homie was like, I sell cell phones, I was like, man, this job sure has changed over the years.
Well, I don't think that he sold the cell phone, so it seemed like he was
He
higher
said,
up
I
in the
sell
tech.
cell phones.
Wasn't he being self-deprecating?
Okay, so what do you think his job is, Trey?
I have no idea how that industry worked, but I thought he was higher up the food chain than the guy who sold
Yeah,
cell
I mean,
phones.
he might be like. I kind of vaguely had the same impression. I think it's possible that he did like marketing for a cell phone company or
Right.
something, but I don't know.
Man, y'all
That seemed like
y'all
maybe a little bit
thinking
more
too
like.
good about this, man. Remember when the dad paid for like, I think the dad paid for gas or he paid for something that kind of looked
That's
at him
how a man like that would roll, though. I mean, you can't
like
win in that situation because he's the king,
punk ass.
and he's got to pay for everything. And again, I mean, if you're that guy, if you're the son-in-law, you just have that's how it is. And he's still going to look askance at you, right? Because you aren't the provider that he is. But nevertheless, that guy wanted to pay for everything too.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, but still, if you're the cell phone guy and you're high up in the food chain, you're gonna make sure it's taken care of beforehand.
And then that guy's going to get mad at you.
Oh well.
He's armed.
Yeah,
And
so they established this very early. Because they're out in the desert on this road trip, and you never know, there might be snakes in the desert or something. So he, I mean, it's like a really thin justification, but like he's got his gun. He's given his he's given the kid like
Yeah.
the little boy a gun, and not taught him
I think
very
he's a
good.
teenager, right? I mean,
Okay,
he's not
Still.
like
well, he's
10,
like a
he's like
teenager. But he's
years
not like a 17-year-old kind of teenager. He's like a 14-year-old kind of teenager.
You
I
think
mean,
he's
I
that
don't know
young?
how old that kid was supposed to be.
He's a
But
kid. He shouldn't have a gun. I mean,
yeah,
we
well,
walk
and
around with a
also he
Beretta.
doesn't seem to have been taught very good gun protocol because he keeps pointing it at people like jokingly.
I mean, he gave him a real gun. He didn't give him like a fucking 22. He was like, no, he had a life ender in his hand, and he just was.
And he was just casually like, "Oh yeah, hey."
There's a baby in the fucking thing. He doesn't give a shit.
And then cell phone salesman / sales executive, whatever that guy is, has
something in between.
Yeah, something in between. Has, like the Big Bob and the I don't know, teenage kid. I guess he looked very young to me. Are like making fun of the cell phone guy because he doesn't like guns. Like, oh, he's a Democrat, right? He's not gonna have a gun.
Was Hannity and Combs out at this time?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
Because this was 2006, right?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, that's like
That's
the height
And
of
it
that.
does matter that the war in Iraq has gone bad at this point, right? I mean, there's a consensus of sorts that we aren't where we need to be, and quite a bit of disillusionment. And I think it's kind of interesting that the director is French, right? I mean, and I just kept hearing freedom fries in my mind when watching this, particularly the opening scene where the people who are murdered, obviously by the mutants, who are clearly Department of Defense employees, when they're murdered, that's when I started hearing freedom fries in my mind. Because from this director's vantage point, the American flag appears at some key moments in this film, as I recall it. From the director's vantage point, what you have, I think, with these mutants is the problem of U.S. militarism, right? Which creates problems abroad, which was the point, but it also creates problems at home, which we were also experiencing at that time. What was that movie, In the Valley of Allah, with Charlize Theron and Tommy Lee Jones? That came out around this time too, didn't it?
I'm not sure.
It was 2000 something, as I recall it. And I love that film. It's a great film. But that was
2007, apparently.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
1 year later, right?
Yeah.
And film unambiguously reflected the disillusionment that was gaining traction among the American populace about the damage that war in Iraq was doing at home, right? And I think, interestingly enough, The Hills Have Eyes is a reflection on this. And I want to say that what was that movie that I like so much? 28 Weeks Later, the sequel to 28 Days Later. It's 2007. Same thing, right? I mean, they use the zombie metaphor, or the, kind of a zombie, the victims of the rage, that rabies-like virus, as a platform for exploring the problem with being an occupying military force and the inability to distinguish friend from foe and the like, right? So you get a number of films that come out 2006, 7 that reflect this problem that we're experiencing domestically as a result of the war in Iraq. And again, I think this is one of them.
Yeah, so they're out. Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I mean, they're out in the desert and on an expedition led by a somewhat bush-like figure, and it goes very badly. So
He leads from the gut.
Yeah, there you go.
Strategic.
So yeah.
Mitsubishi.
Yeah.
I can't ask Ben if he would want to be a philosophizer or get high. I think I know which one Ben would roll with, but never
both. Why can't we do both?
I mean, that's probably where the best philosophy comes from.
Well, I know one thing we do agree on is that even though I think much like 28 Weeks Later is interesting in a lot of ways, I don't think it's quite as good a movie as 28 Days Later. But I think that even though it's not quite as good a movie as the movie it's a sequel to, by far the best fictional depiction of George W. Bush is Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay.
Hilarious. Yeah, no question about that.
Captured the essence of the man.
I love 28 Days Later too. I think they offer different types of social commentary, and the original director's cut of 28 Days Later would have probably been a slightly better film. It would have ended on a bleaker note, but it would have been apparent that that's a film on the struggle that is life, right? You're born into a world that you have no control over, and it's just a struggle from beginning to end just to survive, right? And the end is unavoidable. And I thought that more or less came through in the final cut, but it's really transparent in the director's cut because of the difference in the ending. 28 Weeks Later offers a very different kind of social commentary, of course, that is less existential and more about what's on the ground politically at that time. So, but I like them both, and I'm kind of with you that 28 Days Later is a better film.
Fair
but
enough.
I think they're both good.
Yeah. So,
Boyd, right?
What's that?
Yeah,
Danny
for the
Boyd.
original. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So we're at the as we start out, I should say, we're at the gas station, and right. I mean, when we come back from the credits, yeah, exactly. There's the Captain
Gross
Woods
gas
Harbinger,
station.
is the gas station attendant.
They exist, by the way.
I would have peed outside.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's been
can't even miss anything too. I mean,
there's been some moments when some gas stations in parts of the country, in the parts of the states,
possibly not as gross as the as where the kid was peeing in there.
We've seen shit crawl out of a toilet, like yeah.
I've
seen that gross.
And it wasn't even an alligator. It was a mutant turd.
It was a hand. They shoot that. The original is shot in a place called Victorville, California, which I know no one has been to, and you never will, right? Unless you're trying to meet those people. And I love the fact that they actually shot it in Morocco because he wanted to get something. The director and the writer, when they're actually coming up with the script, they're like, we want to shoot not in the States because we want to get kind of a vastness and a feeling of despair and helplessness. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's hard to get in the States because there's a few places that you can go to where you're in the middle of nowhere for a long time. But ultimately, if you walk far enough, you'll find like a truck stop, and there's just shit. There's just shit everywhere, right? So to go in the middle of this desert where the guy goes, I don't know if you remember the scene where the harbinger's like, well, if you go down the other road, I'm like, bitch, it's all dirt road. What are you talking about? I don't see nothing paved in this shit. And who the fuck does that?
So we should say the gas station harbinger gives them a shortcut to lead them to the mutant cannibals, right? Which I think, and honestly,
kin in some way, right? I mean, I don't know if they're his progeny, but they are his kin.
Yeah, I mean, right? He certainly seems to be linked to them somehow. I'm not sure exactly.
Those are his kids, remember?
Okay.
Yeah.
They call him father.
That's right. Okay. Yep. So they, not realizing they're in a horror movie, the Big Bob takes the shortcut, and they end up there's like a trap to blow out the tires. So they end up stranded. And then like the first thing that happens is and there's a lot to talk about, by the way, in this movie with what the hell's going on with these dogs, but because like the dogs like just run like way the hell out into the desert like 2 seconds after the stop.
Beauty and Beast.
Beauty and Beast, yeah. So they just like immediately like these are just like horribly trained dogs. They just immediately, although they're very they're very effective in a way later in the movie, but and like one of them doesn't have an opportunity to be, but one of them is actually the idea that was a former police dog is incredibly disturbing, given what the other one, who survives, does later in the movie. like what was this dog doing for the police department? But
just
the dogs,
drugs. It wasn't a hard dog; it was just a drug sniffing dog. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's a very specific task.
Yeah, like what did those dogs smell? Because I've never seen dogs do that on car trips.
Yeah.
Just take off.
Yeah.
Into the canyons.
So the dogs take off into the canyons. The kid, the gun waving kid, goes off to try to find them. And one of the mutants like kill one of the dogs right away. Right. So this is also one of the signs. I mean, I know what I watched on Amazon said an unrated version. So I don't know if there was like a 2%. Like,
oh, you watched the unrated version?
Yeah.
Me too.
I actually didn't. And I know one of the things that is in the unrated version. Well, I'll just wait till you get to it. But
okay. Well, so I was going to say, I'm actually super curious about what was left out, because I just kept thinking like there's so much intense shit in this movie that like, how short must the rated version be? Like that's like
it's
how
not
much,
that much.
How much do they leave it
cut
out?
6 minutes out, and a lot of it is the baby.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah. So, but definitely one of the signs, like the fact that you're seeing the atomic mutant babies in the opening credit sequence. Like, all right, they went there, right? Another place they went very quickly is they show you the full-on murdered dog, right? Like a lot of movies will not do that, right? I mean, like, we did the thing about Drag Me to Hell, right? There's a dead cat in that movie, but like the actual killing of the cat is off screen. You just kind of hear
2006 though, Ben. 2006 French directors. And the mutilated dog, I think, is also part of the unrated. Like
okay.
Oh, really?
The real close. Yeah.
Okay.
You got that movie was going to get an X rating.
Oh wow.
Oh.
And then they sent it back from NC-17 because they wanted more people to watch it.
Well, it's apparent that the dog is gutted and is going to be food too, isn't it?
Right. Definitely. Yeah.
So that tells you something about them.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, dude, again, if you watch the original, it's a little campy. And when you're watching this movie, even after you get over the shock and awe of the first kill that Ben talks about, which he's actually being, he's not even being as explicit, because you're talking about pickaxes through the eye
Yeah.
in the first literal 2 minutes of the film, and you're not seeing where it's coming from, and like toxic fish flying all over the place, to the gutted dog, and even the car accident is somewhat jarring.
Mhm.
And it really, in my opinion, at this point, unlike a lot of movies of its ilk that come out afterwards, and I don't know if you guys felt the same way, I actually did get a little more interested in the characters,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
like the main ones.
Yeah. Well, that juxtaposition between Buffalo Bill, I mean Big Bob, whatever, and
Mhm.
his wussy son-in-law was good fun for me, and not just because of Archie and Meathead and that trope, but that's a big part of it. I've witnessed that dynamic with people. It's a thing. It really jumped out at me though, most of all, because the Archie Meathead dynamic and how it plays out in the film, one more time, really spoke to the moment and the disillusionment with the war in Iraq, I think. Because Bush, I mean, what's his face? Big Bob. I wouldn't go so far as to say that he was governed by his gut per se, but he did seem like the kind of guy who was willing to take chances because he was fully armed and who was going to fuck with him, right? Whereas the son-in-law was a lot more contemplative, obviously, which is why he was the wussy, in the context. And as the film unfolds, when you move beyond their interpersonal dynamic without giving away the end, it's telling who it is that saves the day
Right.
and
whose life is cut short quickly.
Well, especially because we're also talking about a genre of movies where when there's 3 women,
Uh-huh.
we're probably all watching it for the first time going, okay, well, which one of these women is going to survive?
Right.
Especially when you have 2 young women in it.
Totally. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
No, I mean, I think the natural initial thought, right, is that cell phone
The mother will
Democrat's
live.
wife, right, is going to be the one who survives because she's got the baby
Right.
and you can't kill the
Yep.
baby. So, yeah. So Big Bob is dispatched very, very quickly at the beginning of the movie.
Despite his big gun.
Despite his big gun, yeah, exactly. They and yeah, and they do it in this. They like the mutants do a lot of like creepy things in a lot of these scenes where they're like voices and it's unclear where the voices are coming from, and this
and
is what
you don't see them. I think another thing, you don't really see the mutants until almost 50 minutes in, 47 minutes in, I think is when you actually start to see the faces, which was, and I don't know how you guys felt about this. Remember, this is 2006. A long way with CGI. Some of those effects are CGI. That's not
Right.
practical. A few people were practical, and Greg Nicotero, who actually plays the guy with the brain and the halo, is a huge special effects guy. He's probably worked on every movie that we've seen. Child's Play, a lot of the sequels of Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday movies. Nicotero's done tons of stuff. And he actually is that character, which was a practical effect character that he created. But the mix between CGI and practical, I thought was actually really, really interesting because, first of all, practical effects had kind of gone by the wayside at this point, and we're seeing really, really horrible CGI.
Sure.
And the kills in this movie aren't over the top in that way that they were prior, where you had to beat people with a sleeping bag inside of a sleeping bag, or rape them with a curling iron, like Sleepaway Camp and all this other shit, where it was how over the top could you get with a kill. And I felt this was just the brutality. And this, for me, high tension and this movie enter into a new world of, we don't need to be in horror. We don't need to have extravagant ways to murder you anymore. It's the brutality and the savagery in which we do it, and how you don't know it's coming, that's going to be uneasy. And for me, rewatching this movie, I was like, yeah, okay, I forgot. This is the movie that really, for a lot of people, unless you were watching a lot of foreign horror, this really was the thing for Americans to get real into that whole like savagery of murder. And to me, it also speaks to a certain time politically that we're in, that we often talk about how apolitical as a society we are, with, to Touré's point, with the disillusionment of our American exceptionalism not paying off like Bush said it would with Afghanistan.
All of which begs the question, why did you watch this at midnight?
Well,
there's just only so many hours in the day. Is that what it came down to?
No, I always watch weird, scary shit at midnight.
Okay.
So you come to my house, best be prepared that we will be watching some goofy shit at midnight.
For the longest time, my wife would watch The Exorcist as a bedtime movie.
Yeah.
And she is one who has a Christian background, so it's not that she thinks it's, you know, silly as if she would as if she might if she were Jewish.
Right.
But there's just something about the artistry of the film, which she loves, that she finds soothing. It actually freaks me out a little bit.
No,
to be perfect.
Hellraiser I can watch going to sleep.
Well, it's kind of silly, but it's fine for what it is.
People under the stairs going to sleep.
Again, same issue.
Anything with Ving Rhames with hair when you're going to sleep.
So when he plays Don King, you watch Ving Rhames play Don King.
when he's got a shag in Blood In, Blood Out, Bound by Honor. He's a cop with a shag.
He was a good actor. I haven't seen him in anything in a while. I only used the past tense because I haven't seen him in anything in a while, but I was impressed with him over time.
Just our luck. Ving Rhames watches Ben Burgis. We're all gonna get fucking.
I'm a fan. It's not his fault that Baby Boy is the most racist movie produced in 2001. He didn't do it.
Ving Rhames.
He was good. He's been good in everything I've seen him in.
I don't care what you say. When Ving Rhames makes eggs and Baby Boy with just the apron on.
Was he even using the apron now? I thought he was butt-ass naked or something. I remember watching that thinking, you know, obviously nobody fries any meat, certainly not pork, that way. Because it's obvious what's going to happen. You have to be a masochist to do that. Which I guess was the point.
I think Tyrese still has nightmares about shooting some of those scenes. Ving Rhames jailhouse punked Tyrese for that whole movie. Ben's never seen Baby Boy.
It was also plausible.
Ben, can you watch Baby Boy and do a review on that?
Don't do a review of it. Just watch it. And let me just tell you, it is a film that when it came out, I thought, well, this could have been from the mind of D.W. Griffith. Right? I'm not sure why the fuck I'm supposed to be in this fucked up ass movie. Which insists, basically, it's a Daniel Patrick Moynihan line about Black property, which is what you get through all of John Singleton's Hood products. Right?
And he had a dad, right?
I thought, weren't you my source on his relatively privileged background, Jason? I mean, we had a lengthy conversation.
He worked in Hollywood for years.
Yeah.
But damn, he sure did hate fatherless Negroes.
Or at the very least, the mothers who raised them.
I think he was sympathetic, right? I think everyone's sympathetic. Let's get in the Wayback Machine to 1991, and that was the trope, right? Not all of us' daddy was Adolf and got your Trey Styles fishing trips were very different than the rest of our Trey Styles fishing trips.
It's true, we didn't go fishing, for example.
Actually, I never went fishing. I think
we did do road trips though. Lots of them. Did
you go fishing with your dad, Ben?
Not with my dad, but I did fish. I did fish growing up. Yeah. So.
Damn, you make your dad sound so mean. You your dad? No, man, my dad just didn't want to talk to me.
He was like, "Get out of my sight, kid!" No,
I liked the other one. The other one. Go watch Fox.
No, I'll tell you, the idea of a fishing trip appealed to me until the fish got into the boat, and then the whole prospect of gutting it and all that shit. That was too much for me. So video games were a lot more appealing.
Yeah, fair.
Playing catch, there's nothing to gut.
Yeah,
I love catch.
my dad
Ben's
is
dad didn't play catch with him. That's
no,
fucked up.
he did do that, but the
Teach you how to hit curveballs.
Throw the ball to the good one. Give it to him so he stops crying. Throw it to the good one. Gabe, come here. I love you. I love you.
Why do you make Ben's dad sound like Eddie Murphy's dad? You
Because they're
sound
the
like
same
Eddie
guy.
Murphy doing his impression of
Ben's
Eddie
dad.
Murphy's dad when you're doing your impression of Ben's dad.
Lillian.
Goony goo goo.
Can you imagine Ben being like Steve Martin from The Jerk with a black dad?
That is a fine film, though.
Yeah, he didn't go fishing. My dad's an extremely nice guy, but in any case, yeah. So speaking of dads, Big Bob is killed very quickly, and wasn't really that much in my head while I was watching, but I do see the Iraq point. I mean, he's out in the desert. He's this big swaggering guy with this big gun, and he's killed by people who are being sneaky. Right? That's you know,
Not fighting a fair fight. Yep.
That's great. That's that again. His road trips were not like Trey Styles and Boys in the Hood. You can't get mad at Trey Styles. His dad came and give him a good fade. You see how horrible Cuba Gooding's haircut was? And Dad, cut me in the kitchen. Who the fuck does that in the hood? You been to get clowned by everybody. Am I lying to Ray?
Well, it's funny. When my cousin Kim, who you communicate with from time to time, reflects on that film, that's one of the things that she centers on. My
mom, this is a true story. And my mom tried to cut my hair when I was 11 years old. And my mom, because she actually has a beauty school license, and she figured that she was going to cut my hair, much like the scene in Raw where Eddie Murphy's mom says, "I make your hamburger better than McDonald's." My mom was like, "I'll give you a haircut better than the barbershop." And she butchered my hair where I looked like one of them African foreign exchange students with a fade. And she had to call help to fix my shit. And the whole time the dude was fixing it, he was just like, how did she even do that?
Oh, man.
Oh, it's bad. If there was camera phones at that time, I would have been a meme.
My childhood best friend, the last Jack and Jill party I attended in life was with him. He was a member. And I was visiting Atlanta at that time, and he decided he wanted to give himself a touch-up. And before we went to the party, right, he wanted to look dead correct, right? And he asked me to do it, but I didn't have experience with clippers like that. So I was like, nah, I'm not messing with it because I didn't want to fuck him up. Things went awry. And they went awry quickly, and we'll leave it at that. And it was really quite comical because when we went downstairs, his parents were obviously driving us this thing. When we went downstairs to connect with his parents, he was making sure that he faced them. They never turned so they could see the back of his head. And then ultimately, that was not sustainable. His mother picked up on something, right? In fact, he didn't turn his head. He turned his entire body. And with a mother and father there in the same room, this became really, really difficult for him. So his mother made him turn his head around, flipped out. I won't say what she said. I will say I love him, but her reaction was fucking hysterical. And as much as I love my boy, my friend loyalty just crumbled in the face of these cold-blooded, funny, comedically delivered things that she threw his way. His father saved him though, because his father was quite adept at fades, and it was a wonderful haircut when all was said and done.
But anyone watching this show, just watch the scene in Boys in the Hood where, for no reason whatsoever, the main character lies to his father about a sexual encounter, and then look at his hair while this is going on. Then also look at Larry Fishburne's hair, which is equally as horrible.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have talked to my father about my sex life.
Who the fuck does
honestly at that age? And I saw that film with my father in the movie theater, and as I recall it, when was this? 91? Is that
91?
when it came out? So I was 20, 21, something like that. And I was a little uncomfortable. I don't want to have because I wouldn't do this, and I don't want this motherfucker asking me. I don't think he would have asked me. I don't think he wanted to know any more than I wanted to divulge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was awkward. Really awkward.
Can you imagine
and unrealistic?
Can you imagine Ben getting a kitchen cut by his dad and his dad looking, hey, Ben, is it? Getting your dick wet? Of course not. Your brother is.
Ben, your mother wasn't named Lillian, was she? Or is she?
No, she's not.
I'm gonna feel so bad when I meet Ben's dad.
Oh. Well, I mean, just the fact that you've turned him into this like sociopathic wasp, it's like once if you do ever get a chance to meet the man, it's gonna be very funny. But in any case,
Ben, have you seen Raw?
It is fun.
Eddie Murphy Raw.
No, I was gonna say though Boys in the Hood, seen that, and I remember once. I've seen it exactly once, decades ago, and I remember that scene that you're talking about, right? Like that's because it's so weird. Like why?
Yeah, who lies to their dad about that?
And it was.
Well, I just wanted my dad to think I was cool, So
yeah,
I just
told my dad to know that fucking random women I meet, I fuck them in their house and then run out the window.
When I was 17, one of my good friends I think he had just turned 16.
Also remember
was hanging out
from earlier in the movie. He's got more comic books than a motherfucker. But yeah, go on.
was hanging out with my father and me at a pizza parlor in New Haven County, and my buddy was going on about what a shame it was that he thought that there were boys his and my age who were still virgins, and he was doing this sarcastically to my father, except his delivery was really subtle. And I was like, what the fuck's wrong with you, man? I was just incredibly uncomfortable. But the absurdity of that scene in Boys in the Hood was grist for the mill for the Wayans brothers, because the fact that they and Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood, they did that dynamic, and the actor who played Sean Wayans' dad, who played Larry Fishburne to Sean Wayans' Cuba Gooding Jr., was younger than Sean Wayans, right? So the father was younger than the son, and that was part of the ongoing bit, because the son did the fade for the dad, as I recall it. And the son read the bedtime stories to the dad, and the bedtime stories were porn, right? It was like Penthouse forum letters or some shit like that, right? So it was at least John Singleton provided the Wayans brothers with good material to work.
The whole scene to me doesn't make any sense on so many levels. Even when he kind of yells at him about, basically saying these hoes ain't shit, son. Don't trust anything they say. These hoes.
Don't run up on them raw dog, son.
Yeah, don't make the same mistake I made. Or that house party where Robin Harris says that to kid. Yeah, that's House Party. Robin Harris says, "Don't make the same mistake I made," and then his head goes down.
And Regina King was at that party too, right? There's a barbecue, and I almost called it "Don't Be a Menace" in Boys in the Hood.
Yeah, Regina King is the narrator of the Hood barbecue.
Yeah, fresh off the set of 227.
Is that how barbecues are at the Burgess house? Is there a narrator of the barbecue that's talking shit about everybody? That's Ben over there. He work at the Fox Hills Mall. He think he better than everybody.
Yeah. No, the weekly Burgess barbecues are like that. Yep. So
Back to the movie.
Back to the movie.
I think we should do a whole thing about your dad just cutting your hair, talking shit.
Yeah.
So is Big Bob dead yet?
Yeah, Big Bob's dead. That's the last plot point we got. The
Set on fire, though, right?
Yes.
Set on fire, alive.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. That's right. Because he's still right. He's attacked and in the car, like he finds this abandoned car and he's trying to start it up, and there's the mutant sitting in the back seat. So we've combined a couple of horror movie things here, and
also,
and this is after the mutant patriarch, is blowing his head off with the shotgun
because he can't. He's leading. The mutant patriarch is leading people to slaughter, and he can't do it anymore.
Right.
And he blows his head off, which was
in the outhouse.
Yeah,
in the outhouse.
Yeah.
Blew his head off in the boo-boo room.
I think there's some symbolism there, but I don't want to play with it.
Because they show it.
They do.
Yeah.
They show it, and the way they showed it, I was like, "Oh, that's good." Have you ever seen if you've ever seen the original, there's a way they do the fire when the Bob catches on fire in the original. It's kind of like, oh, that's actually a pretty good practical effect you guys did there. But when you watch it in this new one, you're like, oh.
It was like animatronic, right?
Yeah.
That's the only effect that I didn't dig. And it's definitely of its time was the fire.
Right.
Bob catching on fire.
Yeah. So Bob has been, injured or whatever.
Barbecued.
But yes, then they they're after this, the kid whose name I can't remember who goes out after the dogs. He sees one of the dogs has been killed, so he knows that there's somebody out there in the desert doing bad stuff. There's a danger to them, but he's too freaked out to say anything. But he's all agitated about that. And then the other mutants are in the trailer, attacking, raping Ozzy Osbourne in one of the birds, and
that was fucked up.
It was. and as a diversion,
he didn't know what chicken nuggets were, right? I mean, so this was his take on a chicken nugget. To be fair.
This is so unnecessary.
It's closest to get. Yeah.
So unnecessary.
That's the best you could do, right? You can't.
And this is part of the movie that's like one of those.
I
guess now you would say trigger warning for people because there's where they don't show any rape. I don't know, and I actually don't think anyone gets raped.
Oh, she gets raped.
Does she get raped?
Yeah, it's funny when I
watched the rated version.
Yeah, when I watched it, and I guess I've seen both versions. And I might own both versions for that matter. But I definitely watched the unrated version in anticipation of this. And in my mind, she wasn't raped. But in this unrated version, there's no question about it.
And does this movie come out before, Ben? Maybe you know this. Does this come out before Hostel?
That's a good question. I don't know that it does come out before Hostel. It's definitely around the same time, but I feel like in 2006, Hostel might have. Actually, let me check that right now. Now I'm
because
curious.
Right after
another ugly American situation.
After this gets redone,
they
remake another movie that I felt like never needed to be remade, which is I Spit on Your Grave. And then the Last House on the Left gets remade as well soon after this.
I thought that was well done though. Last House on the Left.
Last House on the Left is where you didn't need to remake it. I get it. I don't need to see a woman get the shit raped out of her for fucking 60 minutes just to get her comeuppance at the end.
Yeah.
And it's more the parents' comeuppance for her on her behalf in the remake for sure.
In the remake, I believe. That's the Last House on the Left, right? You're talking about.
Yeah.
And then there was if you remember, there was a few of these kind of rape torture movies. They actually made like 4 or 5
Spit on Your Graves.
Spit on Your Graves, which I was like, but it's the same movie every time. Like and it gets creepy because you just think, are you just watching this to see some sort of weird
Well, I remember. So I didn't see the remake, but I saw the original of "I Spit on Your Grave," and I remember looking up the was it like Ebert or somebody wrote a review of it, which was
Mhm.
really like a review of like the twisted people in the theater where he was seeing it, and like what's wrong with them. Like I mean he goes on in there about like the dude who's like sitting in front of him in the theater seems to be way too excited about what he's seeing. Um, but yeah, that was a hard movie to watch. So yeah, so we should say when Big Bob is finally barbecued, it's being done as a diversion, right? When because
Mhm.
all of this is going on in the trailer. So at this point, pretty quickly,
That and
and
a festive way to, make a meal
sure,
because they were gonna eat them, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was 2 for 1.
yeah, that's right. Um, so yeah, the family has been like at this point in the movie, like the family has been like the mom is killed in the course of all the stuff in the trailer. She doesn't die right away, but like that's she dies of her injuries. But
unexpectedly,
Mhm.
because the way she gets shot. Like again, we're old enough to have watched too many horror movies that we know what's going to happen. Mom comes in, hits someone with the pan,
mhm,
and that's the diversion, and people get out, and then you just run, and then you
right,
run for the rest of the film and fall.
right,
No, mom hits someone with the pan, and he was like, "Bitch, what?" And then she gets shot.
right.
With a big
Like,
gun.
well, yeah, they
With
shot the
Bob's
shit out of
gun.
it. It's
It
Bob's
was
gun,
Bob's gun.
which is,
Yep.
is that some sort of sick poetic justice that this is what happens when you're a Bob? People get hurt with your own weapons, Bob.
Mhm.
Right.
I'm sure they weren't thinking that. I'm sure they just wanted to do some fucked up shit.
Hey, Iraq used to be our ally.
There you go.
There it is.
Uh,
Oh, is that what it is?
Possibly.
yeah.
I think they were just like, shoot him with the gun. His own gun.
Well, that was high tension.
The whole dialogue of high tension is
Yes, the Simpsons take on Frenchmen.
Yeah, exactly.
According to
The
you.
Halloween episode. Yeah. Okay, so I should say this is so at the point because the mom's dead, Big Bob's dead, the cell phone Democrat's wife is dead,
So
uh, and that pretty much leaves the two the two teenagers, right, boy and the girl, and cell phone Democrat himself, and then the baby, although the baby is kidnapped. The baby's gone, but
Veal.
not dead. Yeah, well, I mean that's at that point. Like, I mean, after everything you've
Deal.
seen so far in this movie, that's got to cross your mind. It's like, okay, are they going to eat
But they
that
want to
baby?
keep the kid for
What's
some
the
reason.
plan here?
Well, the mutant girl wants to keep the kid.
But I felt like the whole family wanted to keep it because it's like, oh, maybe you're pure. I don't know, but it felt like the baby was some sort of
It
not.
did it did seem weird if they were going to eat the baby. They didn't do it right away.
Yeah, they did everything else right
Well,
away.
there was tension between the mutant girl and the adults because the mutant girl's maternal instinct, I guess, was kicking in. I don't know if she was on the cusp of adolescence or whatever, but she had an attachment to that baby. Maybe because that baby was pure. It struck me, and maybe I'm reading too much into it. The fact that there's construction going on around here probably isn't helping, but it struck me that there was some tension between her and the adults in the mutant clan on that very
For
matter
sure.
because she had an attachment to that baby that none of the adults did.
Yeah. So this
They
is
seemed to be into some veal, but
right.
that was my read on it. What do I know?
Well, I felt that they would have just killed it right then and there. And
I need
the
it
scene that
fresh.
sneeze, honestly, the most disturbing thing in the whole movie, and maybe it's just because I'm a parent, is
Yeah.
is the gun in front of the baby. And we
Mm.
maybe should take a couple minutes to talk about this. Hollywood parents
Wow.
are some of the worst people in the world.
Mm.
Let's just be honest. I don't care if it's a prop gun. I don't care if it's a wooden gun that's painted black. The fact that you're pointing a gun on the baby, apparently that scene originally, the baby won't stop playing with the gun in real life. You know? She didn't know any better. She's just
Right.
and
The
I'm
handle.
sure the actors are like the Milgram experiment. You want me to do this to the baby? because that's a hard thing to tell an actor, especially these guys were a little older. I think they were
I mean,
parents
the gun is pointed at the baby for a long time in that scene.
That's the unrated part you guys watched.
Yeah.
In the other scene, it's just almost a camera angle that looks like he's pointing down at the baby, and you see the baby's hand kind of go up and it cuts away. Again, there's that, was it Borat or one of those movies where Sacha Baron Cohen is trying to convince these, and he's not even trying that hard, these wannabe stage moms that he's going to film a scene with their kid dressed like Satan and shit. Remember that? The kids like on a cross getting crucified, but as a baby. And he's asking these people, like, are you okay? They're like, oh, yeah. And it's like anything to get on camera. That kid only did that movie. Never did another movie.
Didn't the kid who played Damien in the original Omen only do that film?
I don't know. I believe Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, that kid only did that movie.
The kid who was originally cast to play Damien, as I recall it, when his father learned of the role in particular, said, nope, my son's not playing the son of Satan. The other kid's parents didn't have that compunction. But I don't know that kid continued to act after it.
I mean, look at what Friedkin did to
Linda Blair.
Yeah. You know, there was Ellen Bernstein, broke her. Did she breaks her shoulder, dislocates her shoulder in the scene,
right?
Because she didn't yank hard enough. Like this is the era that was the era for those like really horrible rogue directors. And if you look at some of the movies that this director writer combo did afterwards, I wasn't a fan of Piranha 3D.
Were there many fans of Piranha 3D?
There's something about when you start messing with babies, because they don't have the ability to say, I'm uncomfortable with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know one parent that you'd be like, hey, we're going to film this scene. We're going to put a gun in front of your baby's face. Oh, don't worry. It's not real. Are you cool with that? I'd be like, I mean, you're an uncle, Touré.
Yes.
If you were on set, would you look over at your cousin and be like, do you really want to break into the business like this?
Fortunately, my niece, nephew, like cousins, have good parents. So I wouldn't be involved in that. I wouldn't need to be involved in that decision.
Yeah,
I get the point.
That very disturbing. I felt that was where the movie went to a certain point of everything's on the table, no holds are barred, because we don't see. I don't know how much shitty Cinemax movies. But we know Ben couldn't watch it because his dad wouldn't let him watch the good TV. Go watch. I don't care if Tracy Ullman's on. You watch Tracy Ullman. That's what you watch. David, come here. We got cable. You want the snack cake and the TV dinner? Ben, eat the corn. Eat the corn.
The accent changed in the middle of that for a second.
Because your dad's
It's still a version of Eddie Murphy doing Eddie Murphy's father. So I hope your brother is named Charlie.
Close.
Real Hollywood stories with David Burgis. So after all this happens, we start to, and you're right. I mean, everything, like, again, after everything they've shown so far, it really feels like everything's on the table, and like it seems like entirely within the realm of possibility that you're going to see this baby get eaten in the next 5 minutes, but then they don't. So And then there's this. And then this is where cell phone Democrat starts to become a badass. You know that he gets to like he takes the surviving dog Beast, I guess, and out to look for the mutants and see if he can get his baby back. And this is where I raised the question earlier of what exactly Beast did for the police department, because this is a this is a very like this dog just thinks nothing of jumping on people and tearing their throats out. Like does it like several times in the remaining part of the movie. Like,
Got it strategically every time.
So, but they go out there and when he and there's this wonderful creepy scene because remember the cause the mutations and everything else, all the chain of events of the movie is these atomic tests, and so where he finds the mutants is in this like atomic test model town with all of these like creepy like
Disturbing.
Life-sized people who get in
Yeah.
there to like watch TV and swing on swings and stuff, so they can see what the effects of the bombs are. And they go out there, and he finds I don't know if they said this person's name. I'll just call him Chair Mutant, and whose deformities are too bad that he doesn't seem to be able to get up out of his chair, but he's just communicating with the other mutants on his walkie-talkie, and this is where maybe the Iraq War symbolism or whatever becomes clearest, because he's like I don't even remember. He's like singing "God Bless America" or something,
Yeah, it's playing on the TV, I think, and and he tells the story. If you in the very very beginning, there's a little newspaper article that talks about the town, which was a mining town, and the town got razed at one point in time. So he actually kind of reiterates the news story that they know that people didn't read it, and so they raised. I think he actually says like they razed the town, or they bombed the mines.
Well, it go into the mines when
they went into the mines to hide? Was it?
Yes, from the testing, because they wanted their towns. So there's
bombing
eminent domain, basically, that the federal government, I think, wanted to seize that property, this community, for its testing, and the residents didn't want to give it up, so they took to the mines during the testing. I think it's something like that, anyway.
And then he tells that story. Brain, I think his name is Brain, and he tells that story of what happened. And dude, what do you call him again? Cell phone Democrat.
That's a great name. Yeah.
Who all what's funny is he's Pyro from the X-Men. The first
is that right?
Yeah, he's in 2 and 3. He's Pyro.
Cell phone Democrat almost sounds like a nickname for Al Gore. I mean, he was internet.
Yeah, well, that's like appropriate, right? That's he's supposed to be an Al Gore-ish kind of,
Yeah.
At first, I thought he was
a little more personality than Al Gore, but that's easy.
Yeah, but he's in that sort of Al Gore Mac commercial,
milk toast,
kind of early to mid 2000s, kind of liberal dweeb. But and this is the so Brain goes through this whole story. He says, you made us, the way that you that we are, because I guess cell phone Democrats are representative of the United States, American society in general, right? So he's partly responsible for making them what they are, and then he just there's another mutant comes in, was talking to him, and I might be getting fuzzy on the chain of events here, but they
boom, boom, right? And you go, what the fuck is wrong with this? Oh, Brain.
This is the big giant one, the big giant mutant with the neck brace or something.
Time. Yeah. And the dude runs through the wall.
Yeah, and cell phone Democrat ends up
Total Recall.
Being like knocked out and like waking
the Andre
up in like
the Giant version.
In like a in like a meat locker kind of thing, like a with like a
Yeah.
bunch of corpses. I mean, it's actually
Yeah.
one of the most disturbing scenes in a disturbing movie.
The human equivalent of chicken wings.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But he, he breaks out and he succeeds. I mean, he's basically he's basically the final girl in this movie, right?
But Ben and Touré, you guys are forgetting one very important thing that my alarm went off. There's an homage to Tarantino in that scene. Remember, the guy's getting the shit kicked out of him through the house. The big mutant is throwing him through walls, threw him through a plate glass window, he's beating the shit out of him. And what does the dude do at the end? As he barely can stand, he has a screwdriver. And much like James Gandolfini in True Romance, he laughs and he looks over at the brain. They both laugh. And he takes the axe. He has an axe, remember? And he rubs it across his head like, oh. And what does the guy say? He goes, please don't kill me. And they go, please don't kill me. Like, we love it when they say, please don't kill me. And he's almost giving the dude, like Gandolfini goes, here, right here. And he stabs him in the foot. And then he's able to, pickaxe him in the head. And that was a total, almost beat for beat remake of the James Gandolfini death in True Romance.
Though that's kind of similar to what happens in The Howling when what's his face? I know him as a Star Trek geek of sorts from the Doctor from Deep Space Nine, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, which is embarrassing. But in The Howling werewolf film that came out around the same time as An American Werewolf in London, in contrast to An American Werewolf in London, you needed silver to kill the werewolves. Also, in contrast, the werewolves could transform whenever they wanted, so the phases of the moon were irrelevant. He did not realize that the hero of sorts in The Howling actually already had silver bullets because he was hip to what was going on, and the werewolf pumped up his chest and said, "Go for it, bright boy. See, go do what you could do." And ta-da, it was over. So I like taking credit away from Quentin Tarantino wherever I can. So
I feel you on that.
I hate it.
No one says the N-word more than Tarantino.
Yeah.
I think his teeth white.
It seems like it. Yeah.
Saying the N-word. But I had to, I saw that and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Also, I get The Howling confused with Silver Bullet and Monster Squad.
Oh. Well, I see Monster Squad and Silver Bullet, and I see The Howling and Silver Bullet, kind of. But I assume that you don't mistake Monster Squad for The Howling.
You'd be surprised what I mistake. And don't call me Shirley.
That's what she said.
Well, I will admit, as I think I have before in these, to liking, enjoying a lot of Tarantino movies very much. I'm the right age for that, but I will also acknowledge that the man has an unhealthy fixation with the word. That's
yes,
that's true.
Yes.
I think it gives him strength.
Well, he thinks it gives him strength.
He's like Freddy.
Yeah.
With the souls, the children. Yeah.
Well, and he had all those black actors on payroll, so he could get away with it because they were on payroll, right? So that probably amplified his strength, as you put it.
What if that was like a real thing? Like if we saw Tarantino, like the Great and Powerful Oz, and he's just powered by the N-word,
like Popeye and spinach.
Yeah.
Again, I think he thinks it works that way.
I can't watch. What's the white guy's name that was in the Django?
The German guy.
The German guy?
No, the white guy. People like
Jonah Hill.
DiCaprio.
Oh,
DiCaprio. I like.
Leo said the N-word in that movie so eloquently as well. I was like, you look real comfortable, Leo. Leo was like, woo. just real comfy.
It's a far cry from Rose, you're like the most incredible girl I've ever known. From Titanic, though I always do it as Keanu Reeves might. I think DiCaprio was close to Keanu in that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I actually think that all those Scorsese movies that DiCaprio did, he slowly learned how to act.
You didn't like him in Growing Pains?
He was good in Gilbert Grape. I mean, I think that's what was kind of launch pad for his theatrical career, and he was, I think, pretty exceptional. Johnny Depp was great. He's great in most things that he does, but DiCaprio more than held his own. But I think there was, I mean, in keeping with Ben's point, a kind of rawness to his talent at that point, and he needed to refine it just a bit. And he's, a much better actor since. I'm still not a fan though because of Titanic. It just ruined it for me.
Really?
Forever. I hate that movie.
Like, why? Is it historically inaccurate?
Just for so many reasons. But the main one, comes down to the fact that is probably the best expression of a tendency that really takes off in a big way with Titanic, for directors to do period pieces in which the production crew and the director make sure they get all the aesthetic details right, like the right bolts on the damn ship, the right dishware. Oh no, I mean better than dishware, right? The right cufflinks, everything's right in terms of the aesthetics, and at the same time, everything is wrong in terms of the dialogue and the culture, the cultural sensibilities of the time. And so as a result, what you get is, for the masses, a sense that the only thing that changes in time, right? The only difference between us today and people in the past is the technology and the outfits. But the values and sensibilities transcend the ages. And that's a big problem because you can't make sense, of course, of change over time, which means practically that the realm of the possible is not clear in people's mind. How much things have improved in some ways, but also how much things have actually gotten worse in other ways that we're completely oblivious to. People aren't clear on that. I mean, there's a shitload of movies since Titanic that have succumbed to that.
I'll also say
problem.
That, like, even just aesthetically, like, what if the pleasures of historical fiction should be getting immersed in this completely alien value system and like getting sucked in to see the world the way that the people you're watching do, right? I mean, this is like, whatever you thought of the show. I mean, I always thought like HBO's Rome was like great along those lines because it's like everybody's doing like objectively evil things all the time, but it's like but like you're.
It just is.
Yeah, it just is, and you just sort of like you just sort of get sucked into it, and you accept it, and it's like, oh man, that sure is a shame that all his slaves got the plague,
I knew
or for that matter, Friday Night Lights, because that was just as alien a value system, but go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I know a historian or two who liked Deadwood for some version of that.
Same
I
deal.
never watched it, but it's the same idea. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The worst of them for me, though, I mean, this is not a serious film, at least unlike Titanic, and that Nicole Kidman monstrosity set in a Civil War. But for me, the worst of them was this movie. What is it? Overlord. It's a zombie Nazi film, and I like zombie movies, and I am interested in Nazi Germany. I think Ben is frozen, but the film is set right before the D-Day, right before the Normandy invasion, and it focuses on an elite paratrooper unit that ends up they have a job to take out a cannon or a communications system ahead of the invasion. I forget which, and of course they end up discovering the Nazi super soldier project where they take where they create zombie soldiers. But here's the part that was problematic for me. I can deal with all of that. I can deal with the Nazi zombie super soldiers. Fine. The unit was actually led by Bokeem Woodbine. This was an integrated unit. This was an integrated, platoon. It actually wasn't a platoon, it was a squad. Platoon. No, the American Commando Squad was integrated.
Yeah. Not as ridiculous, but still ridiculous.
The non-commissioned officer was Bokeem Woodbine, and the hero is a black actor whose name escapes me at the moment. There were 2 black troops in this unit. So I remember seeing the ad for it, and I was like, well, I don't know, maybe this is a British unit. I don't know how they did it during World War II, and I didn't hear them speak. And I, watched the film, and I was outraged. I mean, I could accept the zombie Nazi super soldier, but I couldn't accept this integrated unit during World War II. And it looked like the uniforms were right for both the Nazis and, of course, the American soldiers. The vehicles, I've seen worse representations of Nazi World War II German era vehicles, but that's just unacceptable. Even for a stupid movie. And people will say, oh, it's just a stupid movie. Like, the problem is you don't read history. So where most people get their sense of history actually is from pop culture in the back of sugar packets, as Grandpa Simpson once said. And as a result, we walk away with this absolutely wrong-headed understanding of the past. And it doesn't do us any good for looking forward.
Yeah, I'll buy that. So...
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
Thank you. I thought you were going to fall back, Jason, on the equivalent from RoboCop. I'll buy that for $1. I thought that's where you were going to go, man.
Well, I have this new sound effect.
You'd be surprised how many people love the crack.
Is that Ice-T? Who was that?
Well, let's hear it again.
You'd be surprised how many people love the crack.
Oh,
that is from a movie that we will be watching on my channel. This is Revolution, called Fly By Night. It is the worst
that one,
film I've ever seen. It's one of those so bad it's amazing.
Was that MC Light?
MC Light doesn't rap in it.
No. I'm asking, is she in
it? Yes, she's in the movie.
Yeah.
The rap songs are written by kind of like my version of Ben's dad. If he wrote raps. Okay. And that line that man says is, you'd be surprised how many people love the crack.
Yes, I picked up on that, and I was struck by the use of the definite article the.
And so
like the Google machine.
That's
or the interwebs.
I also have Eat a Bowl of Fuck from Night of the Demons. Remember that movie?
Oh. Yeah, I watch that from time to time.
Fuck. But
did you watch the remake of that?
They remade Night of the Demons?
About 10 or 12 years ago. It's not good.
No. That Night of the Demons isn't good.
No, and the remake is probably more aesthetically pleasing. I think it's set in New Orleans. It's on Amazon.
No, it can stay there. I don't need to see it.
It might be on Shudder. It's either on Amazon Prime or Shudder, but
you'd be surprised.
It's really, really not good.
But there's not good movies that are like so not good they're hell of entertaining. And Fly By Night is a film that is filled with so many contradictions, and just that is from the opening scene where this guy is rapping a song about, it's a story rap about a gangster. It's like, who did that in the 90s? You would just say you sold drugs. Like, I sold drugs. Bang. You wouldn't tell a story like it's not you. And
you mean like Slick Rick would have?
In 86.
Exactly.
Yes. In 86. This is 92. Everyone's a drug dealer. It's okay.
Yeah.
And, this guy always talks about his neighborhood being bad, and it's just, you have to see the movie. It's actually kind of I will, if Ben is down and he's not doing a show on Friday, I will cross stream or whatever we have to do with Ben so everybody can see it, because it is so fucking ridiculous that I want all of you guys' input on it, because I will be stopping as we watch it and be like, I need someone to explain to me why he did this.
I mean, if we're not going to get in copyright trouble, I'm down. But
no, I figured we do it on Discord. So
okay, yeah. Okay, yep, that works. So meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom, our final boy, Cell Phone Democrat, has fought off numerous mutants. He's gotten his baby back, and there's this. There is, I have to say, the one thing in the whole movie that did not pull a lot of punches, that felt like a little bit of a weird cop out to me, where the good mutant girl, the one with maternal instincts,
Ruby,
with the red jacket.
Yep. Ruby, like he's fought off all the mutants. Then he sees Ruby with the baby, and she's like, "Oh yeah, here you go. Right, here's a baby." And then, all right, already a little bit, but then like, then
But that's why it felt like that's one of the reasons it felt like she was actually protecting the baby while everyone else, the adults, saw the baby as veal.
Yeah,
Because she didn't have a problem ponying up the kid, right? We also forgot that the surviving children of Big Bob and his wife were actually setting a trap for the mutants because they were back at what was left of their trailer, and that's important.
Yeah, so that is important, and that is one of the few things I remember from the original Wes Craven movie is that was in there, right? That they set a trap to blow up the mutants at the end.
Home Alone type shit.
Extreme Home Alone
on the spectrum.
Macaulay Culkin wasn't wasn't blowing anybody up, but that would have been a different kind of movie. But,
there was a no type moment though, right? I mean, it wasn't this, but
and that's Billy Drago playing
Oh.
the mutant. And if you guys know Billy Drago, if I'm not mistaken, he is the man that accidentally kills Brandon Lee in real life.
Oh, is that right?
Later took his life. Yeah.
Oh, how awful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jason.
So the surviving teenagers, have set this trap, right? So they're all good on their end. The Ruby, gives up the baby to Cell Phone Democrat, or starting to do so, or but then like Bad Mutant comes, and this is the part that seemed like a cop out, because I could even buy that maybe Ruby didn't want the baby for herself, maybe she was just trying to protect the baby. But like the thing that seemed like a cop out was that the movie didn't have to deal with the issue of what do you do with Ruby? Do you just leave? Do you just leave Ruby? Didn't
you think she was going to be part of the family? Like, okay, this is the thing. Like, Bill. No, you didn't think so?
Well, I didn't know what was going to happen, but it was like, well, this seems like she's just betrayed these like homicidal, cannibal mutants. Like, is there they just gonna be like, oh, good luck with that, right? Hope everything works out okay. But they didn't have to deal with it because when the Bad Mutant comes, she like chases him off the cliff, and now they're both dead. So like it's just a non-issue now.
By the way, side note, Ruby's eyes were set, as I recall it, kind of far apart. So I assumed that was a CGI effect with her.
Oh,
her face.
I guess.
It was a CGI effect.
Yeah.
She is all CGI. I was wrong. It wasn't Billy Drago that killed Brandon Lee.
Oh.
He looks like the guy that killed Brandon Lee, though.
Way to spread rumors. The effects on I was joking, to be clear, on 30 Days a Night with the vampires. I like that movie. Those were CGI. The eyes, the tilted eyes, that was CGI, right?
She was one of the few people that you looked at her and you could tell it was not practical.
It would have been, I think, impossible to pull it off as a practical effect.
I don't know, man.
That particular
Blood Diner.
What year did
I love practical effects, so I'm a fan, but that would have been tough.
What year did 30 Days a Night come out?
Was that around 2008?
Okay, that sounds right. Yeah,
maybe
30 Days a Night is what it's called, right?
Mm-hmm. And there's a sequel that's not as good.
Okay, yeah, I've never seen the sequel. I saw the original.
2007.
Okay, yeah, I remember finding it kind of funny, and I guess in a way it's even funnier because it's like 2007, so it's right in the middle of that, like Dawkins Hitchens' New Atheism era. That like because I remember the trailer for that movie. They're playing constantly. There's this thing where like the vampires, like somebody's on the ground and the vampires like killing everybody. And they come up to them and they say, "Oh God," and the vampire looks up and says,
"Oh yeah.
No God." Right? It's like that somehow they've just been like, it's almost like they've just become vampires through the sheer force of like the nihilism, like that's what happened. Turns you into a vampire if you overdose on it. But
every emo kid's dream.
I think it's a very strong horror film. There's a lot of good horror films that came out then.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of really graphically violent movies again, and I don't remember what came first, this or Hostel. But
so Hostel, I actually looked that up. That was 2005, so it was just before.
Yeah. Hostel sets the bar because everything to me after Hostel in this movie get real different. Hostel still has the kills in these weird, crazy ways. You remember the girl with the eye hanging out and kills herself.
Right.
But this movie, again, with the savagery, there's no comedy. And Wes Craven at this point is known for almost the tongue-in-cheekness of Freddy, and then the surprise, like breaking that third wall with the Scream movies.
Yeah.
Doing things like killing the big name actor in the first 5 minutes.
And after the phone call where you know, he has the line, right, the voice on the other end of the calls, you know, how about the Nightmare on Elm Street? Those are scary movies. And the girl's like, well, the first one was. The rest were just kind of dumb.
Like that I think Hostel and this movie kill that time. Like it's officially over. This is the new era.
Well, Dawn of the Dead, the 2004 remake, so that's 1 year before, also has that kind of vibe. Right? I mean, there is some humor there, but it's a really kind of normal human humor. It's not, you know, the kind of campy humor that you would get from Nightmare on Elm Street 2 forward, or Scream, where you get the sort of inside the genre humor. So it's real regular people humor in that film. And it's all practical effects and has these moments of real brutality and intensity. And probably is what marks the beginning of the remake, the new remake era. So that's just a year or two ahead of where we are with this film. Hostel struck me, and I might be dead wrong about this, but I thought I had read an interview with Tarantino or Eli Roth, who said something to the effect. I thought Hostel was kind of inspired by Wolf Creek. It's much more brutal than Wolf Creek, but I think Wolf Creek is a much better movie.
I agree.
All the way around. I like Wolf Creek a lot. TV show, you know, has a different vibe, right? The TV show series had a little humor to it that undercut, you know, the horror in Wolf Creek, and the same is true for the sequel. But you get not an ugly American thing coming out of Wolf Creek per se, but this interesting class dynamic between the villain in Wolf Creek and his victims, because he's the hard scrabble, kind of left behind frontiersman, and you get this revolving door of Englishmen, you know, people from the UK, I should say, just to broaden the net just a little bit, who are middle class tourists, and then from his vantage point, the wusses from Sydney coming into the outback, and he has nothing but contempt for them. And it's, I thought, pretty interesting, but it sort of sets the stage for the kind of ugly American narrative that you're going to get from Hostel. It certainly is what you get from the Hostel ripoff Tourista as well. Tourista wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. In some ways, I kind of liked it better than Hostel, but it was a ripoff, so then
it's easier to watch than Hostel. I mean, all these movies are taken from the really low end bottom shit from the 70s and even the 60s. And again, I don't know how much of that stuff you guys looked for when you were younger, because remember, this is pre-internet, so we actually had to go looking for these either via video stores, or maybe you found an old Fangoria or something and they reference one of these old films and you had to go find it, but it was hard to find. Somebody had to watch this, find it at the library. Know where you're from.
But it's like the Tarantino approach to horror, right? Because I mean, that's what he did. He ripped off blaxploitation and other such films from the 70s and made them high art. And that's what Eli Roth does, because he does the Green Inferno right after.
Green Inferno sucks.
I mean, at least one of the one or a couple of the movies we talked about today, I remember watching because they were in the dollar VHS bin at Video to Go in Lansing. But that's like, oh yeah, I'll watch this. You know.
I mean, I actually used to seek out all these films, and then, much like people do with vinyl collection, you look for producers and directors' names. So if it had Trauma on it when I was like 11 and 12 years old, you know, I'm definitely going to try to find anything that said Trauma on it, because I think I told you guys before, my mom, when I was like 11 or 12, gave me this movie called Street Trash. She says she watched it one day and couldn't believe that it was real. She thought she was having some sort of drug-induced hallucination. And so she recorded it for me, and then she goes, "Here, watch this." If you've ever seen Street Trash, it's where the guy gets his dick cut off and they play keep away with it. Not a movie that you should show an 11-year-old, but definitely
with a penis. No. I think you can weather it better if you don't have one. But
she couldn't believe that they were playing keep away with it, and then one guy kicks it. It's pretty funny. But those movies, the remakes that you see again, Last House on the Left. If you remember, when we were kids, wasn't nobody looking for Last House on the Left unless you were that weird kid that tried to make fake blood and shit. And but these movies.
Did you use Mrs. Butterworth when you found out that it was syrup?
It was corn syrup. No, I actually got, save your lunch money and see how this works.
Yeah.
These remakes of like Spit on Your Grave, those movies could definitely stay where they were.
Speaking of trauma and remakes, though this film hasn't been remade, have you seen Death by Temptation?
Yep.
I really enjoyed that film. I saw it. Was in college. I think when it came out, I certainly saw it in college, and I was staying with my dad in Evanston, Illinois, which is irrelevant, but it was on cable and just on, and very much enjoyed it. Was pleasantly surprised by it. I just wish that if that's a film to me that merits a remake with a bigger budget. It pieces together just fine for me on the trauma budget that they had. But I'd like to see that film remade.
You don't want to see that remade because, everybody, again, when we talk about these films that people are going back and remaking.
Yeah.
And again, if you guys have seen this movie, I'm really shocked. Ganja and Hess.
Oh, yeah. You were talking about that. My cousin's, I think her husband is a fan of that movie.
I tried to watch it several times. I really couldn't get into it. But anyway, Ganja and Hess gets remade by Spike Lee's company. I don't know if Spike Lee remade it himself in the Sweet Blood of Jesus.
Yeah,
which also wasn't very interesting. And I don't think everything needs a remake. Sadly, Hills Have Eyes works.
Yeah.
Ben, you just watched, was it Friday the 13th?
Well, I actually did watch. So Friday the 13th is kind of a I don't know if that's exactly it's one of these movies that's sort of like halfway between being a sequel to reboot. But yeah, I watched the 2009 Friday the 13th. I also just watched the 2004 Dawn of the Dead, which I actually yeah we actually so Trey,
I'm a big fan of that film
of the group chat and wasn't participating in the conversation at this point, but like I had like a hour-long conversation with Jason about Dawn of the Dead because there was a video that somebody who does lefty political stuff and also does videos talking about horror movies and made about it, which I thought the part of the video where he was talking about Dawn of the Dead, I thought it was like, well, you just like don't remember what happened in that movie, right? I mean, I thought a lot of it was just wrong.
He ripped that movie apart. Yeah, he did not.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I think, but like a lot of the reasons that he was giving were things that's like, okay, this was fresh in my mind. I'd just seen this movie like 2 days ago. Like that's not what happened in Dawn of the Dead. But yeah, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Like, I think that. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a kind of weird transitional fossil in a lot of ways, that like, cause it's, like you've got the fast zombies a la 28 Days and Weeks Later and 30 Days a Night, basically, right? They're vampires, but whatever, they feel like fast zombies a little bit in 30 Days of Night. But yeah, I thought it worked pretty well. Like maybe there's an interesting, Bush era war on terror discussion to be had about that one too.
You guys remember the remake of When a Stranger Calls?
Oh yeah, I watched that.
So there's two When a Stranger Calls, and a lot of people don't really remember the first one because it came out in the late 70s and it didn't do that well. But that's the calls coming from the house. They made a second one
with Carol Kane in the original.
Carol, she's in the first one.
Yes, she's in the original.
She is the
one,
babysitter.
first one.
And that girl that's in The Stepfather, that very, very stale acting, but for some reason she kept getting all these roles in the late 80s, early 90s. But that scene, that opening scene in When a Stranger Calls Back, was the most frightening thing I'd ever seen in my 12 years of life, because we didn't have caller ID. Not everybody had a cell phone, and you had to call. Remember calling information for an address or a phone number? Like,
I used to call them also to ask them why chicken wings were white meat and not dark meat. I would call information for all kinds of queries.
You are the worst.
Yeah. Our chicken wings white meat. That's not the kind of information we provide. Like I didn't know that.
But think about that moment in your life where it's like, dude, this is really scary. The calls, what? And then when they remake it, my first thought was, how can you be scared of the phone in 2006?
Yeah.
I got caller ID. I got a cell phone. Fuck off.
Yeah,
I know where he is.
It's like that.
Well, it's also being older.
That old timey horror movie thing where like the phone is ringing and you realize it's off the hook, and that's terrifying.
Like, there's certain jokes that don't work anymore, and I didn't really feel that they tried to redo that premise, because also too.
The movie we just watched, by the way, does the stereotypical latter-day horror movie thing where they have to establish, like, very early on the cell phones don't work, or else like the tensions.
Yeah,
that's like the new hot thing, right? Because your cell. But do you remember movies like One Missed Call? I don't know if you guys ever watched the original One Missed Call.
I don't think I remember that one.
When you missed the call, the message would be pretty much hearing yourself die, and it was. Yeah, you remember the Japanese, the Asian stuff in general was real moody and ghosty, spiritual, whereas the American stuff was like, we don't care about that. We're going to bludgeon the shit out of you over the head.
Right. Well, I think the Japanese played a major role in the improvement that took place in horror films in the early beginning with The Ring. And that was a film that walking into it, I had no interest in. It just seemed silly. I was like, and someone described it to me. I said, well, isn't that just urban legends or some shit? And I watched it and was transfixed. The absurdity of the premise just melted away in the context of the excellent execution at the level of writing, acting, and directing. And it brought together what's great about great horror films, and it's true of sci-fi. Very believable characters in the throes of absurd circumstances. And that's what you need in order to be sucked in to something like that. And there's some nice commentary on telecommunication, and of course how we're all sort of connected and simultaneously disconnected by way of television in that era, or the internet. Unfortunately, all the Ring sequels sucked to one degree or another, at least the US versions. I think the Ringu sequels were probably pretty good, but the Ring 2
okay, you didn't watch any of this?
I did.
Do you watch Sadako versus Kayaka?
No.
So yeah, there's this Japanese movie. It's like it's like Freddy versus Jason or something. It's The Ring versus The Grudge, right? That's what that movie is. Yeah.
Really? Cool. Well, Japanese they have their own kind of splatter gore stuff, and I don't know if you guys know
like Audition, for example.
Tokyo Gore Police is one of them, where it's just over the top, kind of what do you call it, grindhouse type stuff. I don't mind that because that's just silly. But there's
like kung fu movies,
torture porn shit.
Yeah,
that I'm.
Which is Audition, right? I mean, that's what Audition is.
Well, but
I've never seen it.
Moody though. Think about Takeshi Miike's movies, even the stuff he did for Masters of Horror. He does.
Which ones did he do for Masters of Horror?
He did the one about abortion.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Okay.
And that's moody. The Audition is really. It takes a long time for it to really set in what's going to happen
right
to this man.
That's what I've read.
You never saw it?
Mm-mm.
Really?
I tend not to watch movies I have to read. There are exceptions.
It's
There's
easy
not
to say.
enough dialogue
You know
in
what?
it.
I think in America you can watch it with the US. This is
Oh,
about
and that's got its pluses and minuses too.
Sure.
well,
So
high
one of my
tension.
favorite movies is Swept Away, the original Swept Away, an
Mm.
Italian film.
Well, did you
That you
guys
have
watch
to read,
Old Boy?
Oh, Old Boy, I saw. Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Who are you?
I've only known you a couple of years. I think that's the
But
problem.
why haven't you seen Old Boy?
You didn't tell me to watch it until just now.
All right, we'll watch Old Boy.
There you go.
So yeah.
By the way, I just watched The Black Phone
Oh
yesterday.
yeah.
Yeah.
You haven't seen that yet.
How was it?
It was all right.
Was it new?
I enjoyed what was it? You had Insidious, and what was the other one?
Annabelle?
No, the one with Ethan Hawke.
Oh, Sinister.
Sinister. I enjoyed Sinister very much. Insidious was all right, but the original Sinister, and I actually like the Sinister sequel too. But I a lot actually, and I could relate to the Sinister film on some level because you had this moody writer who tended to displace people from his life when he was in the throes of his projects. I'm totally that guy, actually. So there were things about Sinister that resonated with me idiosyncratically, but I thought on the whole it was pretty well done. There are elements of Sinister that are in the Black Phone, not just the cast. Two crucial cast members, Ethan Hawke and James Ransom, are both in this. But it's kind of like Sinister meets It, or maybe even Sinister meets Stranger Things.
Okay.
I mean, for me, it's in the Stranger Things It element is that these are kind of early adolescent age kids who are the victims of a serial killer. And it has some elements, particularly of Sinister 2, folded into it, the supernatural element of it. The bad guy's not supernatural at all. He is just a child predator. But the way out, the path forward, is by way of a supernatural intervention or two.
Are you guys a fan of these new up and coming Stranger Things kind of cash grabs?
Like what?
There's one called 1984, something about a kid that gets kidnapped. Very similar to Stranger Things.
1984.
It's on Shudder.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that.
There's more now. There's two things I'm seeing a lot more.
The only thing I can think of is that is like a movie now that reminded me of Stranger Things. Particularly was the Ghostbusters sequel that just came out, which
because the kid's in it.
Yeah, love the kids and something about the vibe. I remember after watching that, like described it to several people as Ghostbuster things. You know, that like it seems like I think it was just also just kind of wallowing in 80s nostalgia. That's also maybe part of it.
Yeah, it's a big chunk of it. And this film is set, Black Phone is set in like 78 or 79, right?
Yeah,
so it's got that nostalgic thing going on too. But anyway, sorry, Jason.
No, there's I don't know. There is a nostalgia, and we talk about this all the time. That's where the money is, right? Because we actually have jobs and we'll pay for things, and we're not always stealing.
It's relatable.
You know, even in the music world, if you look at popular sales. But I find that whole thing interesting, that now it's not, we're not going to reboot it, but we're going to give you something very similar to, because it's just, you like this, here's more, eat more candy, eat it. Which I don't really dig, because I like when there's, somewhat diversity in my shitty films.
Well, and it's funny. I think you and I, Jason, have a different view, and maybe Ben too, because I think this might have come up on the American remake of Let the Right One In.
I've never seen the American remake. I watched the original, and then I was sort of.
I enjoy them both.
Okay, I never watched it. I think I was sort of bothered by the idea that they were doing an American remake of it, and
it's basically scene per scene. I mean, it's pretty close to that.
Gotcha.
But one of the elements that's appealing for me of the American one, which is what Let Me In, I think, is simply the fact that it's actually set in the era of latchkey kids. It's set, I think, in the 80s, and I think that character and I would just like the kids in Stranger Things would be about the same age. So there are all these cues about that are just part of the backdrop of the setting, of the life, the day in the life of this kid, that have a nostalgic quality that make it seem that much more realistic. They're now and later commercials on, for example, I don't know when the last time either of you had seen a now and later commercial on a TV spot, but there's one there. There's also my favorite one, and this is jumped out at me because I lived in Atlanta during the missing and murdered children, right? And I was in that age cohort. One of the victims was a kid I went to the same boys and girls club with, or boys club with, and the same church with. He was just a year older than me. But there's, in that era, a PSA type ad that said, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Right?
Yeah.
And that was part of it. And that was part of the backdrop for this kid's personal sense of alienation, was that his parents were divorced. His mother was engaged in self-medication of some sort, so that she was pretty much checked out. And the father really didn't want to deal with him either. So, and at the same time, he's being bullied. And all of these things, had a nostalgic quality to them. They were relatable in a American of that era kind of way, that made the Americanized version of the film that much more enjoyable. I hadn't seen the original version. I should add,
The original is actually
I saw it, and I eventually saw the original, but I saw the American version first, and had learned before I watched it that it was basically a scene by scene remake.
Well, all these US remakes, the Old Boy remake is scene for scene, and I believe Dragon Tattoo is scene for scene. There's something about Naomi Rapace. I have a weird crush on that woman from the Dragon Tattoo movies.
Okay,
I actually saw the first one.
That's why you like Lamb so much.
You fuck a sheep, bro?
That's clearly the
Ingvar,
only
you fuck a sheep,
explanation.
bro?
That's the only remotely reasonable explanation for what was happening until the conclusion, anyway, and then it's apparent.
But I went to the theater, and it was hard you had to go to like weird art theaters to see the sequels to Dragon Tattoo to finish the trilogy. And I was like, I don't want to see an American remake because the explosions are going to be too big. There's going to be too much backstory.
That's true.
There's going to be too much dialogue. There's something about foreign films and the silence.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, they certainly tended to devote more attention to character development and the laws of physics than their American counterparts.
Like I live alone.
Things matter a lot.
Like I live alone, so I'm quiet, and sometimes until I do my show, I don't speak.
Yeah.
And also, I live in a country where I don't speak the language, so and I'm pretty secluded where I am. So I love the silence of watching people do their everyday shit.
Do you do the thing where, like, if you do go out and somebody does happen to be speaking English around you, you're like, what the hell? You distracted me. Like,
yes. Yes.
Because
also there's not a lot of black people.
You don't dap up with them, though?
Huh?
You don't dap up with them as fellow gringos?
I really
wish too many fellow
gringos
around.
There's a coffee shop in downtown Rosarito that a lot of, because remember, this is kind of a retirement area. So non-tourist days, there's a coffee shop, and I do like to sit outside on a day like today. It's gorgeous outside, and drink a cup of coffee and people watch. So there's usually white people there, and when they see a black person, they get excited because they're like, "You speak English." So they just
you're like, I'm from Veracruz. Got me all wrong.
Or I'm from Haiti. There's a few Haitians, but no, a lot of conservative Bobs love having conversations with me, and I never hold back, and we have a good old time. So you guys should come down to Rosarito, and we can
go to any bar.
Conservative old white people.
Yeah, fair enough. I used to have when I was living in Korea, where there are definitely too many gringos for that to be special. But like, even so, Right? Like, I mean, like it was such that I was used to, like, if I went out to certain places or whatever, like I just assumed it was like part of the appeal that I could like go like the bar across the street that I could just go work there because I knew.
Well, I hate when they speak. I hate when they see me. Like the other
Because I
night,
knew nobody would be speaking English, and so it'd be a distraction-free
people that
environment.
speak English, they go get the English guy, and I walk up and they were like, can I help you? I'm like, I just practiced walking up here. I was gonna order. Do it again. Do it again.
Yeah,
so
fair.
I do that. So that I'm excited for you to come down here, Ben.
Yeah.
You're gonna come because he sucks.
Yeah. Touré thinks he's gonna be kidnapped by the cartel.
I have my concerns.
If they kidnap your old ass, then you should feel proud. Be like, you know what? Somebody loves me. You want
Not enough
my
to pay.
raggedy ass.
Probably not enough to pay. I'm out.
You just passed 4 teenage white girls and you want me?
I must be doing something right.
There you go.
It's all that tofu. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Not those buffalo wings I had yesterday. That's not helping the cause.
Oh, wait, can you eat lobster, Touré?
Yeah.
Oh, then we could totally all go get lobster.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I have not had lobster in a very long time, but I was a fan.
Oh.
My wife's a big lobster fan.
I thought she couldn't eat meat.
Oh, she's a vegan sometimes. Most of the time.
Just lobster's fine. It's just like a big cockroach. This is. Like no,
I think she wouldn't disagree for some cheap, excellent lobster.
Dude, this sounds like I'm smelling a sitcom here.
I thought it was just the butter dipping sauce for the lobster that you were smelling.
I should. Yeah, you guys have to. I'm gonna hold off and not even go eat at a fancy place until you guys get down here, so we can all experience it. A real deal fancy place down here, like Michelin star fancy for $20. When you guys come down here, we'll go to Ensenada.
I forget. Did you, when you flew out, Jason, to New York, did you pit stop in Chicago?
Straight shot.
Wow. How long was that?
Bumpy as fuck.
From San Diego?
Mm-hmm. Bumpy as hell.
Okay. How many hours? Was it more than 6 hours?
No.
Okay.
4.5.
Oh, shit. All right. Cool.
And I was so uneasy about the whole thing being a failure that I was too frustrated to get scared.
Yeah.
I hate flying, by the way.
Ditto.
We both. Well, Ben is okay to fly.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Ben flies a lot.
It's not terrible with Xanax, but it's not my thing. And most of my flying, I flew a lot as a kid, and mainly out of Hartsfield Jackson Airport back when it was Hartsfield and whatever preceded it, and then too often to Newark. And Newark's International Airport is kind of a dog. A lot of delayed flights and all that stuff, right? So,
well, yeah, you guys can totally load up on Xanax here.
Oh, man,
yeah, I don't think we want to talk about that though.
Defied stereotypes and being the least neurotic person on this screen.
No, when it comes to flying, it's Jason and me all the way, I think.
Ben's and I win. He comes back from here just drool.
Yeah.
That Mexican Xanax did something to me. Dude, that was Mexican Nazi.
That would be pretty earnest.
You can also get steroids here too.
Sure.
Dick pills.
Well, I mean,
all the more reason to make sure it doesn't get cut off. Working exactly the way it's supposed to, and you've lopped it off.
How buff and sleepy my dick is right now.
I mean, there are a lot of people who go down for, just regular medical stuff, right? I mean, there's entire towns in Mexico.
When you cross the border, there's a huge sign on this medical building, and it says, "Come." It's in English. It's like, "Come for the medical tourism."
Yeah.
So you can also get a dick extension. So if your dick was to get cut off, and you wanted to and they didn't cut the whole thing off, and you had the base.
You just need to get it back the way it was.
Yeah, you're like, okay, can I get it back? I was like 7 inches soft. So you could get a mean penis and a fake butt and all.
It's kind of a meanest.
The meanest penis.
Mhm.
Well,
And someone will tattoo it on you for $20.
well,
A tattoo on your penis extension? Is that what?
If you tattoo the extension before they attach it, that's called winning.
well,
Yeah, you
somehow
wouldn't want it after. Not if it works anyway.
Like, I didn't think this through. It was all that cheap Mexican Xanax.
Well, by the end of The Hills Have Eyes, you would think that Cell Phone Democrat had a meanest because he's all like, he's all splattered in blood, you know, and he's like coming back with the baby and the dog, and he's triumphed over all the mutants. The kids have done the same thing in this, you know, comparatively lower key way, but they've done the same thing at the trailer. Relatively happy ending, although I'm still not sure how they're getting out of the desert. And then they do the horror movie thing where you like in the last 5 seconds of the movie, you're like, but maybe it's not over. You know, you've got the binocular view from,
right,
you know, presumably some other mutant.
And that was my least favorite part.
Yeah.
Did you watch the sequel? Did you guys?
I did. I did. Got Flex in it as a sergeant.
It did. That's how I knew.
Yeah, before you pressed play, that's how you knew.
When I saw him in
half
the movie,
of the homeboys from outer space.
Outer space.
Yeah.
Well, he's a homeboy from out of state for me. Says California.
There. And it was him and Ron from A Different World as the homeboys from outer space.
Also known as Vanessa's real life husband.
Okay. My dad always saw him as young Sherman Helmsley or young George Jefferson. He's a graduate of the George Jefferson School of Acting, comedic acting. When he played Ron, specifically on A Different World.
Wayne's best friend from Different World. For those of you that don't know who Ron is. I believe he's in School Days as well, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of people who had at least had a cup of coffee on the set of A Different World.
Jasmine Guy, Kadeem Hardison.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Who else?
Was it the actor who played one of the actors who played one of Whitney's boyfriends, I think, was on there. But maybe I'm wrong about that.
You're probably right.
Or Whitley. Did I call her Whitney?
Ass back to Mother Africa. Everyone watching Ben Burgis' show right now, I know you guys haven't seen it. I'm going to take a wild leap. Go watch School Days, and then you give Ben. He loves when he gets long emails and movie reviews. And he actually, unlike me, checks his Discord. So send Ben a Discord review of your review of School Days.
Yeah,
and reflect on Spike Lee's trope endings too when you get down to it.
To be honest, I check my Discord like once a month and like reply to a bunch of stuff. But yeah, that's
I can't wait for this one. Can you guys please watch School Days? Send Ben your review of School Days, and he has to read them on air for his patrons.
There you go.
If you're real, you'll make this happen.
Oh my God.
No God. All right. So probably gonna leave it there for today. We're doing Blade in August.
Sure.
Oh, that's right. Because they're remaking Blade
with Mahershala Ali as Blade, right?
Mahershala Ali from the Bay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of disappointing. I think he's a good actor, and I hate to see all these good actors making comic book movies. But that's how it is.
That's where the money is.
I know, and I'm not going to sweat him from getting paid. But
look,
it just
if you had a
legitimizes.
Touré Reed action figure, that was like Ben Burgis had an action figure with the patches on the sleeves. Those magic patches. That's dope shit.
Sure.
You wouldn't want a Touré Reed action figure.
I hadn't really given it any thought.
Comb over.
I had not given it any thought.
You could have badass swords and shit. I'm such a bad parent, by the way. I really do this. I go to Chinatown and Japantown and ask my kids if they want swords and
Like
ninja stars.
real swords?
Yes. Wouldn't you want a real sword if you were a kid?
Well,
It's not about one.
I mean, that the kid would want one is not really the issue there.
Yeah. You didn't watch South Park, huh? That's one of the best South Park episodes ever.
Yes.
I don't know, was it
Luckily,
like fun with toys or something like that?
My
Yeah, I remember the
3-year-old did not.
episode,
I was trying to
where
get
they're
my
doing, like, the
3-year-old to
anime
want a
things
ninja
and going
star.
back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
My
No, I
3-year-old
love the
did not want a
execution
ninja
of that.
star. So
He did not want one.
I really tried to push it on him. I was like, "Don't you want one?" And he was like, "No, Dad." And I was like,
I
"Look how
was in day
sharp he
camp.
is."
I went to day camp with a kid who had one and was horrified as to
Yeah.
where this could go.
Right?
Yeah.
Kids didn't want Ninja Star. I'm disappointed in young Phoenix. He did not want a Ninja Star, but he did want a cheap Hot Wheel.
That makes sense.
He didn't. He
Good
also
for
didn't
him.
want nunchucks. I was going to get him they had the nunchucks.
Yeah.
He wanted no weapons.
Now, the Hot Wheels that he got, it wasn't just to make sure that he's such a great kid. It wasn't like the Dukes of Hazzard, General Lee Hot Wheels with the Confederate battle flag on the top. Right? This was like a red, black, and green Hot Wheels or something. Instead, the Marcus Garvey Hot Wheels. Right. Black Power fist on the roof kind of Hot Wheels. Apple pick.
It's bad.
Tylo
Edition
edition or
always
something
looking at me
of
like,
Hot Wheels.
"Am I really his dad?" Right? No, he actually. You know what he's really into right now is family cars,
like SUVs,
station wagons,
wow.
minivans, SUVs.
The garbage truck thing made a lot more sense.
Garbage trucks, definitely. We had to wave to the garbage man several times.
Sure.
And there's a
that's
picture
standard
that he
kid
made
stuff,
his
but,
sister take
Yeah.
in front of an
station
excavator.
wagon, not so much.
No, that's weird. Not the wood paneling station wagon.
Oh,
That's
he
the best
loves
kind.
because he's never seen one in real life. Who the fuck
Thank
rides
God,
those?
too, right?
Yeah, so he's like, "What is this?" I was like, "It's a station wagon." He's like,
Did Fred Flintstone drive in this?
"It's like, what does this do?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
this is what the dad gets in the divorce."
Yeah. Wow. The wood paneling on vehicles was just bizarre to me.
He just
Even in real time.
He loves dump trucks and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
yes, when we go to San Francisco, it is rather funny. He loves garbage men and mailmen, and he has to wave to them and watch them do their garbagey shit, and he loves it.
Well, have you introduced him to the Constructicons?
He loves construction vehicles, and we have to stop at construction sites, and he wants me to explain or now he can explain to me what the vehicles are and what they're
Yeah. But how does he feel about construction vehicles that can become
he doesn't care
giant
for
robots?
Does not care for robots at all.
That's not cool. I'm looking
Not at
forward to him
all.
eventually caring for robots.
I want him to care about Transformers. I want him to care about Star Wars. Right now, he cares about construction vehicles, building things with the construction vehicles, i.e., moving the dirt to another pile of dirt to build the foundation for the building.
He's a boy who's looking forward to retiring with a real defined benefits pension. That's what I'm seeing here. He's got municipal employees and guys, men and women who work in the building trades.
I mean, look, he's looked around. He's figured out that, like, you could spend your life, being into Star Wars and comic books and heavy metal music, and you'll end up probably like having to do a communist podcast from Mexico. And, he's just realized that's not the future he wants.
Or he could have a pension.
And I'm all
retired
for it.
55.
His mom works in the private sector as well, so
but indoors, right? I mean, he wants an outdoor job.
He's about government jobs. His grandfather on my side and his grandma on his mom's side have government jobs, and he appreciates a good pension.
Well, I mean, if he keeps this up, if he continues on this trajectory, I know somebody who can hook him up with a job in the building trades.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. He's got an in. He's got it made. You know.
All right. Well,
what more could you ask for out of your kid? What do you want to do when you
Professional
grow up?
athlete.
Oh, fuck that. Fuck that. I'm 5'10" on a good day. His mom isn't a giant either. What sport is he going to play? Was he going to box?
He could play baseball at 5'10".
Sure he can.
At 5'10". Infielder. You don't want to be but so tall.
Really? How many little mixed kids out there playing baseball right now?
I don't know. I didn't pay attention. I'm sure a lot. I mean, look at Derek Jeter. And then everybody from Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico.
That's different there. The water's different there or something. Those guys they just come out different. This little son bitch, that's fine. Just have a regular job, man. Be normal. Stay on the low. Life is fine.
Professional golfer.
Ew. Why does he gotta be lame?
It can pay very well.
It can, but you know what?
Tennis too.
I want to be a garbage man. I'm okay with that.
I think garbage man's super cool.
Fair enough.
Garbage man.
Got the robot arm.
But I've always told my kids, don't do anything that I do. And they have noticed, they're like, Dad has lived in poverty since the mom split up. So you don't want to do anything like that.
Fair enough. All right. Well, now that we've sorted out Jason's kid's future, we'll probably call it a day. So we will, we'll be back in a few weeks perhaps, and talk about Blade. Looking forward to that. Watch Jason on This Is Revolution. Read Touré's book, and I will see you all very soon. Peace.